Hey everyone, let's wrap up April. April was kind of a mixed month for me. It started off really well and then things started to improve and go according to plan. But then things went wrong. Mostly because I planned one more week of April. I don't know, I thought we had a week more and then everything at work got horrible and personal and I really didn't like what happened the last week of April. So I ended April on a really unfocused, stressed out, down mood or whatever. And that affected everything I did. So reading wise, I didn't do so bad. I finished 9 things, but I also DNF'd 2. I adapted my reading to deal with all the insomnia I was having, so I went through a lot of short novella-like ebooks at night and tried to read physical books during the daytime and audiobooks whenever I was out and about. But before we get into the books, I also managed to upload a few videos in April, one of which was my goals video. And I talk about the Q1, how I did on my reading and my personal goals and how I want to switch them up or what I want to do and achieve in Q2. So we have a nice discussion there. Thank you all for watching. I also uploaded a rather short letter to April. Like I mentioned, I didn't end up April on a high note, so that affected my letter. I don't think April was as bad, but I couldn't see the good things at that point. So moving on to the books, where I also uploaded 2 videos, a review and a vlog about some of the books that I'm talking about. Just as the first one, The We Free Men. I'm trying to summarize the book just now and I failed at it. So this is the first book in the Tiffany Aching series. As you know, I'm continuing my reread of the Discworld novels, and this is the beginning of a new sub-series. So it's a good starter book for anyone who wants to get into it, and it's more on the young adult side because Tiffany Aching is a 9-year-old girl who is a little bit different to everyone else around her, and she is a farmer's girl, but she sees things differently. Basically, she sees what's there, which of course is a witch's trait. And when her brother goes missing or disappears, she goes looking for him and has to cross into another world where fairies and other magical, mythical creatures live to rescue him. That's a bad summary, but the book is very enjoyable and I managed to talk better about it in the review, so I'm gonna leave it at that. The other physical book I read is Wandering Soul. I basically bought it for the cover. I saw other people talking about it, but somehow I forgot what it was about, I noticed when I started reading, which was pretty fast after I bought it, so I don't know what I was doing. Anyways, this book is following the story of refugees from Vietnam, basically 3 children who get orphaned on the way of escaping Vietnam after the Vietnam War in the 70s. Over Hong Kong, they come to England, and they didn't really want to go to England. They wanted to go to the USA, but things happened, and we see how they live and adapt and the struggles they go through from the time they escaped to nowadays. I really enjoyed the way this was written because we get chronological viewpoints of following those 3 children and them growing up and the struggles and dynamics they have in between, and also with adapting to the new culture and the new life. But we also see snippets of the author of the book who's writing the story and their thoughts in dealing with what they want to talk about and things like that. We also get some other informational snippets that are included that inform the story and are background to the events of the time that happened then, things like that. And we also get a wandering soul, which is basically, as I understand it, in the culture, they believe that if the bodies of the dead are not buried where they were born or in their hometown, the souls cannot move on and they are wandering souls. So we have those as well. Overall, you could classify this as a standard refugee story, which addresses some of the more modern talk about refugees, but also the viewpoint of refugees and things that happen. But I like especially the way this is told. So it was a very fast read. I read it in a weekend and it is hard to put down. I highly enjoyed it. The last physical book I read was part of my trying to read a German author every month, and it's a book that I've been recommended by friends quite a lot. I always felt it's not the right book for me. I might not enjoy it. And I was right. Der Pfau, or the Peacock, I think, Peacock, is a book that is set in the Highlands in Scotland on a farm, or rather a place where a lord and a lady have to rent out cottages to pay for all the things. And then there's this troupe of bankers who go there on a team building event. And the peacock, that's the main part of the story, or the title of the story, basically goes insane and attacks everything blue. And that's where the story evolves around. I read about half of this and I was utterly bored most of the time. I wasn't really interested in any of the characters. I wasn't in love with the writing. It wasn't bad writing, but I wasn't in love with it enough to continue just for the writing's sake. The story is evolving into a lot of bickering and misunderstandings, and the whole thing about the peacock is blowing up into a huge misunderstanding, I guess, and events from there. It's supposedly funny. I didn't laugh. I really, really don't like these types of misunderstanding stories where everything is just funny because people assume things, and I can't tell you how it ended, as I DNF'd halfway through. So I should have listened to my instinct and not read it. Those were all the physical books I read. So let's move on to audiobooks. I listened to quite a bit of nonfiction. The first one was Burnout. I talked a lot more about my reading experience while I was reading this in my Easter vlog, so check that out for more details. Overall, in hindsight, I think it is a good book. It has a lot of interesting statistics and research that it mentions, and a lot of studies it's building upon, and it's focusing on burnout from the point of women, which is always interesting, but also it's the first book I ever read about burnout, so I can't say how different it is to any books that focus on the male point of burnout or the male causes for burnout, the way to deal with things. Mostly the standard usual ones, they have some interesting ideas about stressors and stress and separating those, and the way they look at how to deal with burnout from a female perspective is interesting, but I don't know if this is the book that I needed and wanted, and it gave me background information, but I don't think on the long run I'm taking away a lot from the book to deal with burnout. So not sure how I feel about the book still. Friendaholic is another nonfiction audiobook I listened to, and this was enjoyable in a way that it was really easy to listen to. I can't say I've known the author in her public way that she is somewhere. I picked up the book randomly because I heard it was dealing with being a friendaholic and friendships and making friends, losing friends, all of these things. And it does that. So personally, I make friends easily, but I have trouble sometimes keeping friends. And in recent years, due to job change and the pandemic, I've lost a lot of friends more in the way of losing contact than them dying or something. So I was thinking in the lines that the book was addressing that topic, and it was from her personal perspective. So it's a lot of talking about her and her experience with friends and making friends, having friends, the demands friends make of you and that you make of friends. So a lot of about expectations. And I thought that was very interesting. Some was relatable where I could relate with her. Sometimes I thought I could relate with the other person that wasn't her, and it was interesting. I must say I would add trigger warnings if you have fallen out or been ghosted by friends, because that's definitely talked about, and there's a huge part about miscarriages, which is something the author deals with and is very open about. But if you are not prepared going in this book reading about that, that could be a shock. And so overall, I enjoyed the book. It was rather interesting, but it wasn't kind of like a self-help or analytical book. It was more, this is my experience and this are my thoughts about it. So that was interesting and easy to read. It was a fun read. It was a quick read. It was entertaining, but informational on a scientific side, not so sure. Then I finally picked up Project Hail Mary. I was reluctant to start the book because I didn't really like Artemis, and I was afraid that this would go down the same direction, but I was gladly disappointed in that it was really amazing. I highly enjoyed Project Hail Mary. If you don't know what it's about, this is a story of Earth basically dying and facing a real huge catastrophe, and to save the world we need to send a spaceship to another planet and do stuff. And so we follow this one pilot of the spaceship waking up in the middle of nowhere, trying to figure out where he is because he doesn't know where he is and what happened. He lost his memory due to being in a coma for the travel time. And so we see him there in the spaceship trying to work out what's going on, and we get flashbacks to the events on Earth before the trip. And there's a lot more going on I don't want to tell you about, basically. If you think about it, it's more of a first contact and save the world story. So first contact tells you that he's meeting another alien there where he goes, because apparently other worlds have the same problem, so they work together. I highly enjoyed how it was narrated. Like I said, I listened to the audiobook. The narration was really, really well done, so I'm guessing the writing is well done as well. But on audio, this worked really, really well. I also really enjoyed the characters. It's mostly those two on outside of the world, but also the flashbacks to all the things happening on Earth were interesting. It's similar to The Martian, that it's very science heavy and explanatory. So if you didn't like that about The Martian, you won't like this either. From the character point of view, it's also more similar to the snarky, sarcastic, and not always likable Mark Watney in The Martian. So that is something I noticed while listening, is something that didn't work for Artemis. So the characters in Artemis were also similar in tone, but for some reason it didn't work there. So here it works perfectly well again if you like that type of character. So I'm guessing if you like The Martian, you will also like this one. If you liked Artemis and not The Martian, I'm probably guessing you wouldn't like Project Hail Mary. Not 100% sure on that. Anyways, glad I finally listened to that one. The last audiobook I listened to was The Daughter of the Moon Goddess, and that was also another DNF. I think I listened to a little bit more than a third of the book, and trying to summarize the book right now, I'm failing. It's sort of a retelling of a Chinese myth, I think. I talk more about that in my Easter vlog. Mostly what I didn't like was the perspective. It was first-person narration, everything was told, and I was just getting bored with being told everything from one perspective. At one point I thought this book might have been better if it were third person and we could also get the perspectives of the other people, or at least one other person, a dual perspective. I sometimes think that really helps in this kinds of stories. And then I gave up, or I abandoned the book when it looked like an annoying love triangle was setting on, and an unnecessary love triangle. Things didn't work for me. Read up the synopsis and see if that's something you would like. I basically decided it's okay, but not enough to actually finish it. And I read the quick summary and I was like, okay, everything I thought will happen happened. And then I was happy, sort of. Anyways, another DNF. Which brings us to the ebooks I read. The first book there is Crudrat, and this, I don't know how to talk about it. You know, I really love Gail Carriger and her writing, and this shows in this book as well, but it's different from her other writing that I read, as it's not a romance. And it's really, would you say, young adult? The main character is a young teenager who really, really is about to have her life changed and turned around. It's a sci-fi novel. It starts off in a world that's is it called the Wheel? Oh, I forget everything this month, I'm sorry. So they live on a world where everything is mechanically organized, and they have these turbines or things, these machines that make air conditioning, as far as I understand. I may be wrong on that one. Basically, the Crudrats are cleaning those machines. There are blades, and they need to scrape off dirt or something from that. That's the easy part. And in this world, there's a real clear-cut society and ranking, and The Crudrats are people who were rejected, so they're rejects from the society. In that society, everyone gets implanted a chip at some age, and then they are part of the society and can manipulate or control a lot of the world things that are working. It's a huge space station. Did I mention that? I'm confused about this. I think the first book, it's the first book maybe in a series, but there's no second yet. And in this world, in this book, there's a lot of world building. We learn a lot about this wheel and the spokes and the society and the ranking. And then things happen and we move to a different world and learn a lot about a different society and class of people. And it is all interesting, but not a lot happened. Although a lot happened, but not a lot happened. Do you know what I mean? It's a little bit confusing. I enjoyed the book, I enjoyed the characters, I enjoyed the world building. But overall, it was a rather slow read and not what I expected. And like I said, a lack of romance. I picked up a Gail Carriger book and I expected romance. So maybe that was a little bit on me. I don't know. But overall, it was an interesting world that was created with interesting population and societal, I forgot the word, but society and its makeup. Something. Let's move on to Weasels in the Attic. This is another book I picked up because I heard people talking about it and how lovely it was. Mostly I picked it up because it was the latest addition to my below 150 pages Kindle wishlist. Like I said, I wasn't sleeping well, having a lot of insomnia, and when one book finished in the night and I wasn't ready to go to sleep, I just purchased another one. And Weasels in the Attic was one of those. And it is 3 short stories told from the perspective of a middle-aged man in Japan. And these 3 stories are him meeting or having interactions with a friend from college. And I tried to figure out what it is that everybody likes about it. It's not that I didn't like it, but nothing really happens. It's just these 3 stories centering about those 2 and their lives a little bit and other people they know. And in the background, there's also that the narrator mentioned that he and his wife are trying to get pregnant. That's the ongoing theme, but it's never discussed between those 2. It's just something he mentions in the narration for us. So it was nice, but nothing happened. But it was nice. I don't know what I wanted to tell me. It was nice. From there, I went on to the next book on my wish list, which was Succulents and Spells, which turned out to be an introductory book or the first book of a series of witches in New Zealand. And again, nothing much happens. I'm not sure if I keep forgetting or didn't really get what was going on the books this month, or if actually all of them were rather slow and easygoing. It's a lot of world building and setup of the characters and how witches are part of the society, and there were monsters, and we learn a lot about the little witch finding out, or the main character, not the little witch, the main character finding what her powers are and what her specialty is. And we also see a budding romance with another character she meets, and there's a lot of interaction there because it's all about those 2 and the adventures they get into. So the story mostly evolves around those 2 main characters getting to know each other and a little bit about the witching and what witching means in this world. And I think it's going to be more followed on in further books. I bought the rest of the series. It's 4 more books, so I might have to tell you more in a May wrap-up about this. But it was really interesting and fun to read. But like I said, it felt like an introduction to the world and the characters. After all of these books where I don't really know what to say about, I finished on a high note. Basically this morning, but that counts. And it was The English Understand Wool, another short book that I'd been meaning to read for a while, and I thought, why not now? And I was really, really amazed by this. I completely forgot why I added it to my wish list, but these were 60 pages, fun, fast-paced read. Well, that might sound wrong. It's not a fun adventure, but I really enjoyed the reading of it. The story or the book starts off with narrations about experiences of a person, a daughter and her mother. And as we go along, it sounds like memoirs, and I'm okay, whatever happens. And then something shifts, and we get a letter from the editor or publisher giving advice on the writing. So you notice this is something more of someone actually writing a memoir. And you also get the feeling that the editor wants something different to hear, and that there's more to the story than you've learned so far. And I enjoyed that immensely. If I want to sum it up, I would say this is a memoir or a story about publishers going to trauma victims of abductions and kidnappings and writing about their experience. But it is differently in the way the whole story works from the way that the kidnappers treated the girl. And you have to read it to fully understand it. I don't want to spoil it. But the writing really makes you think about these, let's say, trauma memoirs, where you really have the feeling there is something that makes those books sell and that the people are looking for. And you have that part in the publisher who really wants to push the victim into telling a certain kind of story, and the victim is pushing against that. And it's so clever, it's so much fun, and I highly enjoyed it. So I ended April on a high when it comes to reading, so that was good. And that was all for me in April. Like I said, I had a mixed month of reading. I kept forgetting a lot, I kept picking up. I definitely looked for easy, fluffy, not too difficult books. I am completely omitting that, and I am continuing this throughout May completely. Because May is not really going to be better at work, so it's a busy time of year at work naturally, so that is to be expected, and we'll get through it and see what happens. Now I'm curious to hear what you have read in April, how your reading was, how your April was. Let me know in comments if you've read any of the books I talked about. Anything. Let's talk books. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.